So that's kind of why, to me, looking back on this laptop is almost a look back to where we came from.
Yeah,
And I would imagine, people who have been on company journeys, who might have been part of a startup company, and they remember the heady days of how exciting it was, and then God forbid the company actually becomes successful, and then so many people jettison out, because they're like, it's not the same place it was anymore.
yeah,
And it's lost its kind of, if you will, hippie soul of what we were trying to do. Of course, we wanted to make money, but we were also trying to achieve something else beyond
yeah,
merely making money. And unfortunately, generally speaking, if you create something successful, typically speaking, the money people take over
yeah,
and milk it for as much as they possibly can, and oftentimes kill the thing. I mean, Twitter probably a good example of that. I mean, it's not dead yet, but
yeah,
it appears to be on its way towards death. Tesla, which we were talking about before, appears it certainly lost a ton of value,
yeah,
and you can't really see an easy path back other than someone buying, kind of the remains of Tesla
yeah.
and building it back up to the vision it originally had, sort of thing. And who knows, maybe we'll be looking at a Model 3, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. So I remember the promise of this once great company.
Yeah,
So, and I mean, not to go too far afield, but I mean, a positive that might come out of it is obviously we're on the brink, supposedly, of the AI era.
yeah,
And at least we're entering this era with as much cynicism and
yeah,
skepticism of particularly corporate power, and a lack of government oversight, as we enter this space,
yeah.
versus thinking, oh, we just leave it up to Elon and Mark Zuckerberg, and they'll just magically sort it all out for us.
I think the thing with AI, as I think the irony is, people have kind of seen all the sort of impossible consequences of AI going wrong. They've seen all these sci-fi depictions of AI. So everyone already kind of has a reservation about it. They want to kind of use the best out of it. They want to make sure that AI is, rather than reflecting what society is actually like in its bad ways, but actually focusing on the idealistic ways, almost make the AI behave in a way that we wish we were and sort of bring people together. It feels like AI might be the technology that can sort of even things out, but obviously it tends to reflect a lot of the unevenness as well, those divisions. So it's kind of the hope that because there's not that regulation, because that's the kind of the potential of that technology, it might have the ability to kind of sort of bring things a bit better, maybe focus things a bit more, and maybe highlight a lot of these differences and maybe eliminate many of them as well.
One can only hope
Yeah,
that
that's the optimistic way, isn't it?
yes, and perhaps the social media era has been a warning to us all that, it's not all necessarily all going to work out in the end.
Yeah.
It doesn't. The so-called free market, isn't, it doesn't always end up with pro-social endings.
But when you were talking about bringing this object with, which is a Mac, you talked about the original PC you had, an IBM.
Yeah.
So what was the transition point from basically the sort of PC Microsoft world to the Apple world?
For me, it was relatively recently. So I've been, a Windows person since at least 2010, maybe, or some thereabouts, if you will. So I mean, I guess it's been, going on to 15 years now about making the switch. But and it basically came down to, people, I guess more and more people, as I've got involved in these conferences,
Yeah,
a lot of the technology early adopters, and especially when we started the old Dippy Design and Build It conference, which obviously was, half designers and half developers. Typically speaking, most of the designers had Macs, and so
yeah,
I thought, okay, well, let me check out what the cool kids are are computing on, and I thought I'd give it a try, and it wasn't like, oh my God, this is the thing that's going to save my life, but it was just that little bit better and easier. And
yeah,
then once you get fully adapted to all the shortcuts and all that sort of stuff, you're just like, well, I don't really have any reason to leave. I do think specifically to this machine, when they finally got off the Intel based chips to their own Apple Silicon, it was a great leap forward for them, and I
yeah,
think for the category in general. And so that's why if I had to go back onto Windows tomorrow, I'd have no issue. I wouldn't kick or
Okay,
scream
yeah.
about that sort of thing. That's not a ideological thing, if
So
you
you're not
will, you
turned your
know.
back on Microsoft or the PC sort of
No,
system.
I think most people agree Microsoft in the Satya Nadella era has changed, and it
Yeah,
has opened, and it has sought to have a bigger perspective than just Microsoft versus the world.
yeah,
And he to some extent, perhaps you could say has a bit of that hippie vibe I was talking about
yeah.
before. Whereas with Steve Ballmer, he was very traditional, hard charging
Yes.
capitalist. I need to win and crush everyone else.